A warm welcome to your Barbados Today Morning News Update for Monday, June 26. Amid a robust public debate on the issue of vaccinations, the Chief Medical Officer disclosed that while some fully vaccinated persons have tested positive for the virus, they have not been sickened by the virus. Speaking on Sunday's Down to Brass Tacks, Dr. Kenneth George says, so far there have been 10 reported such cases, 6 imported and 4 local cases.
We have had 10 such cases, of which 5 have been imported, 5 or 6 have been imported cases with persons doubly vaccinated and against Pfizer and persons with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. We have also had 4 cases in Barbados of persons who have had complete vaccination with AstraZeneca. What I can tell the group is that in every case, all those persons have been managed at Harrison's Point. None of those persons are in ICU. None of those individuals are on oxygen. None of those individuals are on CPAP.
Were they asymptomatic?
Yes. So they are in what we would say tertiary. So tertiary means persons who need the least form of clinical support. There's secondary, which is a step up from tertiary, and then primary, which is the ICU type facilities.
Just 27.3% of the population is now fully vaccinated, and Dr. George says much more people need to come forward to get the jab because it will significantly reduce the adverse effects of COVID-19.
Based on those small numbers, what we are seeing is that yes, breakthrough infections are possible. We had always told the public of Barbados this, but the likelihood of death, particularly with persons with NCDs, is strong. The likelihood of death, you're unlikely to have an adverse outcome. And therefore, and from the little information from those cases we have had, indicates that persons are coming in more occupying certainly the asymptomatic type infections. So as Chief Medical Officer, my function is to make sure that we manage this situation.
This week, government is scheduled to meet with the island's social partnership to map out how the country will treat to vaccinations and the workplace. First Vice President of the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, Dr. Adana Grandison, who was also a guest on the program, expressed concern that misinformation is driving vaccine hesitancy in Barbados.
Within the scientific community, we always give away, I should say, to our gut. All right, because no matter how you may feel personally, you must have the scientific evidence to back up what you may think. You start off with the hypothesis of what you may think may be the situation, and the scientific method is to go and investigate that, prove it either right or completely disprove it. All right. Now, when you have that information before you, scientifically speaking, then certainly it is no longer just a matter of gut of saying, I feel, but I now also have the requisite evidence to back me up.
The Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association has served notice that it will be lobbying the government for unvaccinated, not fully vaccinated employees and those who withhold their vaccination status to undergo weekly testing for COVID-19. The group said members agreed on this position at talks last Friday. The BHTA said it expected the testing to be facilitated under the current arrangements in the public healthcare system. The latest COVID-19 dashboard shows the Best Dos Santos Public Health Laboratory identified 6 new cases of the virus, 2 males and 4 females from the 1,530 tests conducted on Saturday. There are currently 161 people in isolation. Overall, Barbados has recorded 4,345 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 48 persons have died from the virus. Additionally, 74,033 people have received second doses and are fully vaccinated, which represents 27.3% of the population. Barbados will be in the spotlight on BBC's Global Questions that's being recorded here later today. BBC anchor Zinid Babwadi will go one-on-one with Prime Minister Mia Mottley, and she tells Barbados Today she's ready to ask the tough questions. High on her agenda will be Barbados' COVID-19 situation, the high price of food on the island, and climate change. The Prime Minister will appear on the programme at 2 p.m, and Minister of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy Kirk Humphrey and Ashley Lashley, founder of the Hey campaign, will appear at 7 p.m.
I suppose I would want to know just about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Barbados. We know that it's decimated the tourism industry and that it's gone down by about 90%. And for a country that relies for 40% of its GDP and 40% of its jobs on the travel and tourism sector, that's a heavy blow. And so I'd like to know what kind of recovery plan she has in place. I'd also want to know about the desire to diversify the economy away from tourism. This is something that's been discussed not only in Barbados but right across the Caribbean, because so many countries here depend on tourism, and we've seen what a shock the COVID pandemic can deal. So it does reinforce the need to diversify the economy. I've also been very interested by the fact that when I go to a supermarket here, the food prices are high, and I'm thinking, goodness, how can people afford to buy food here? And of course you do have a very high food import bill in Barbados, so I would want to ask the Prime Minister, why not produce more of what you consume? Climate change, I think, is also a huge, it's an existential threat to some Caribbean countries, so I would also want to ask Mia Mottley about what steps they want to be taken at the national level, the regional level, but also what they want from the global community.
In other news this Monday, a fresh appeal for the United States to remove the embargo against Cuba. During a solidarity rally with the governments and people of Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua, next to the Cuban monument at Paynes Bay, St. James on the weekend, Charge d'Affaires of the Venezuela Embassy, Alvaro Sanchez, condemned the actions of the American government against Cuba, which he says has maintained a solid relationship with Havana for many years.
In the case of Cuba, I think it's also, of course, the case of Venezuela and Nicaragua, the case of Palestine, and the case of the many other countries who have been under such a mercifulness blockade against our countries by the United States. But particularly in the case of Cuba, the fact that Cuba has done and given so much to the world as a testament of such support, solidarity and internationalism we have here in front of us with this wonderful team of medical workers from Cuba working here in Barbados. It's really something that cannot even be described, because on the contrary, it should be that for a country that gives so much, that gives its best people to the world, it is the country that should be supported by the United States, by the international community, by multilateral organizations, etc.
Ambassador to the Republic of Cuba, Sergio Jorge Pastrina, says despite the challenges Cuba has faced over the years due to the embargo, today his country is proud to maintain a strong relations with Barbados.
Today we have here nurses and doctors from Cuba and sports trainers from Cuba, together working in solidarity with the Barbadian people to provide education, to provide training, and to provide health, to continue the work of those who were there, those who died in that attack. So this is the reason why we all have to stand together, to continue together.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional news now, despite rising COVID-19 cases, Guyana's President Ifran Alim made it clear that schools will return in September after more than a year of closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Here is more in this report from Newsroom Guyana.
President Irfan Ali on Thursday made it clear that public schools will reopen in September 2021 after more than a year of closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking with the newsroom late Thursday, the head of state said there is no second guessing. Preparations are underway for schools to reopen in September. The president also pleaded with all teachers, administrative and supportive staff to get vaccinated before the reopening in an effort to protect children.
Education is important, and the medium to long-term impact of COVID will be felt when we have an assessment as to the impact on the education system. Many countries are already giving frightening reports in terms of the impact. I've been traveling around this country, and I know I've seen children who ought to have been in school, they're out of the system. So we have to get back to school. We have to put the measures in place. We have to get vaccinated. The teachers have to get vaccinated and create the condition to ensure that we get back to school.
On the international front, 2 international airports in the Chinese city of Shanghai have cancelled all flights, and authorities banned outdoor activities as Typhoon lashed eastern China.
It's been a difficult week for people in many regions of China. First, a year's worth of rain in just 3 days triggered floods that killed at least 63 people in Henan province and displaced more than 1 million others. And now, a typhoon has hit the eastern coastal province of Zhejiang, bringing more rain and high-speed winds. More than 300,000 people have left their homes after offshore wind speeds reached 100 kilometers an hour, and an emergency alert was issued at its highest level.
We've got a kind of a psychological trauma going on here, as well as economic disruption, but there's also political significance. And the point of that is possibly, going to play out over coming months.
Local authorities have closed schools and businesses. Transport systems have been suspended too. In nearby Shanghai, China's largest city and commercial hub, all international and domestic flights have been cancelled. Activity at the busiest port in the world has shut down, with large containers removed off ships.
It's going to be a very, very difficult. It's going to be a very difficult time for the shipping traffic. I would say, ideally, we should see at least a week or more delay before things even come close to being normal.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.